Hey everyone, it's Dave from Dave's Ohio Barbecue. Today I am going to be making smoked chicken on the pellet grill. Stick around. Now I have another smoked chicken video up there. I believe I did it on my offset or maybe even on my Weber Smoky Mountain. Not sure anymore. I'll put a link to it up here. I think that's here. Which side does it come up on? Up here. And you guys can check that one out if you want. This one, I'm trying a different rub on it. I'm trying a little bit more spicy rub. Rub that's got a touch more kick. The one I used in the past was kind of just mellow and everyone liked it. Grandma liked it, Mom liked it, my wife liked it, everyone liked it. I'm trying something that has a little bit more pizzazz in it this time. I've got 2 chickens here. They're about 5.5 pounds each. What I'm gonna do is butterfly them. I cut the spine out, and then you just kind of put them on your cutting board and push down right in between the 2 breasts, and you kind of hear this crack and they'll lay flat. You get a much more even cook on it that way. You can get the dark meat and the light meat to pretty much finish up at the same time. It's just a nice flat bird to cook. And as a side note, you should probably wear gloves when you do this. I had my sink running next to me, so I was constantly washing my hands, but to be safe, always slap on a pair of gloves. If you've watched any videos on cooking poultry, smoking poultry, there's 2 schools of thought out there. First, there's the wet brine, where you take a salt and sugar and water solution and you dunk the bird in it for anywhere from, like 12 to 24 hours to kind of make the meat retain all the juice. And it works great. I used to do that method, but I don't anymore. I feel like soaking it in the water all that time, it gives you this kind of mushy texture on the meat, and that's really not what I'm looking for in my barbecue. So what I prefer to do is the other method. I am going to dry brine this. Dry brine basically means you salt it about 24 hours in advance, and you let the chicken naturally absorb the salt, and by doing so, keeping its water inside of the meat. But before I get to that, let me talk to you about the rub. The rub I'm using today is pretty simple, and as always, please feel free to adjust these measurements any way you want. I start off with 1/8 of a cup of brown sugar and then 1/8 of a cup of maple sugar. If you don't have maple sugar, feel free to use brown sugar for the entire 1/4 cup. That's fine. I take 1/8 of a cup of smoked paprika. Now that's important. I feel the smoked paprika has a much better flavor than just straight up paprika does. After that, I put in 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. The reason this amount of salt seems kind of low is because I'm brining the chicken ahead of time. There's already going to be salt in it. If I put, a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of salt in there, it would really, really be salty. So since I am pre-brining it with salt, I kind of cut the salt down in the rub, just enough to kind of flavor the skin, but not too much. Next is 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. Now, this is where the kick comes from. If you don't like cayenne pepper, you think it's going to be spicy, cut it down to 1 teaspoon. Cut it down to a 1/2 teaspoon. I don't care. If you want more, put 3 teaspoons in, but this sort of gives it that flavor. And at first, when you mix the rub up, it's going to smell spicy. If you taste it on your finger, it's going to taste spicy. The cayenne will mellow out as time goes on. Then after that, we've got 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of onion powder. So now to dry brine this bird, I could simply take, salt and just rub it all over the bird and call it a day. But I like to get the salt up under the skin, especially on the breasts and the thighs. Those are the 2 big areas of the bird that really need, attention. But why just put salt under there if you can also add a little flavor? So what I like to do is I like to take about 1 tablespoon of salt, and then I mix in about 1 tablespoon of the rub that I just made up to that. Now, spreading that inside there could be a little difficult, so I squirt olive oil in, and the amount will vary, but it's probably about 3 tablespoons until I get this nice kind of slurry. I want this sort of liquidy syrup consistency of my rubbed salt mixture. Okay? So once I loosen up the skin and get it separated from the meat, then I take some of this on my fingers and I go inside there and I spread it all over the breast, all over the thighs. This will not only allow the salt to soak in and brine it, but you also get a little bit of that flavor like directly in the meat. The problem with chicken skin is the seasoning will go through the chicken skin eventually, but it's kind of like you have a big latex glove laying on top of your meat, and it works as a boundary, especially if it's a fatty chicken. If it's got a lot of fat under the skin. It stops the seasoning and everything from getting deep down in there. So By rubbing it directly on the meat, you're going to guarantee that you have really, really flavorful meat when this thing is smoked. Now, I put this into the fridge. I covered it overnight just because I didn't want anyone in the morning waking up and bumping it or anything. But once I woke up the next morning, I took the tin foil off the top and I let it air out. Your refrigerator is super, super dry. You may not think it, but it's a really dry area of your house. And this will help the skin to dry out, which is important because we want to have skin that is easy to bite through. We don't want to have skin that tastes like a rubber glove. Okay, so now to smoke this today, I'm using my pellet grill, but I'm going to be running it at 325 degrees. Now I know that sounds hot. That's not really low and slow. That has to do with the skin. I'm not looking for the bird to absorb all that much smoke flavor. Just a hint is fine by me when it comes to chicken. But I do want that skin to kind of render out and sort of get crispy. So this is the second step. The first step was drying it a little bit in the refrigerator. The second step is cooking it at a higher temperature. 325 seems to be the sweet spot for me. This will help the skin get a little bit crispy while it's cooking. In the smoker today, I'm using hickory pellets. I like them. They're really versatile and they taste really good with chicken. I love a nice hickory flavor on it. But you can use whatever you want. I mean, outside of probably, you know, mesquite or something, that might not be very good. But cherry, any fruit would work great. Oak, hickory, maple, all those are fantastic for chicken. So I'm going to put both my birds onto the smoker. My smoker has a heat probe that will automatically kick the smoker down into warming mode once you reach the desired temperature. I'm going to cook these birds to 150 degrees. Now I know what you're saying, Dave, that is not the safe temperature for chicken. And you are 100% correct. That is not the safe temperature for chicken. You should bring it up to 165 if you really want to have a safe chicken. And I'm going to. Once it reaches 150, I am going to open up the vent on my smoker. It's got this kind of searing station on the end here on my pellet smoker. I'm going to open up those vents and let the flames come through. And then skin side down, I am going to cook these off for a little while to crisp that skin up even more. Like I said, I really want that skin to be bite through. So I'm going to take turns putting it on the searing section of my pellet smoker to get that skin just to be delicious. And then using my external thermometer, then I can read the temperature, and once it gets to 165, then I know I'm good. Now you can do this recipe on any of your smokers you have at home, doesn't matter. Gas grill works great. If you have two burners, one on each side, turn them on, get that middle to that desired 325 temperature, and then use those burners on either side to sear off the chicken at the end. It'll work out great. Chuck a packet of wood chips on there and you'll get some nice smoke flavor as well. And as you can see, this chicken is super juicy. The skin cuts through perfectly. This is how smoked chicken should be. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure you follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Dave's Ohio Barbecue. Make sure that you press the subscribe button down below and hit the bell next to it. Every time I make a video, you'll get a notification when my video is up. I have a lot of videos coming out really soon, so I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.